The Alberta real estate market is moving quickly, especially in Lethbridge. Do you have a plan? Hey, it's Carrie Flatla here, Associate Broker with Remax Real Estate Lethbridge and Carrie Flatland Associates. So I want to give you a, mid-2025 real estate state of the union and talk some numbers and talk about what's happening on the ground in Lethbridge real estate right now in terms of the different segments of the market we have happening, because I think people are understandably overwhelmed and the market has been moving and changing so quickly that we're kind of getting behind on what's happening. And so buyers and sellers are not really keeping up in terms of their strategy, and they're not moving with the market as well. So I want to talk about the market and then talk about some strategies and plans you need to think about whether you're a buyer or seller entering into this wild Lethbridge real estate market. So what is happening? Macroeconomically speaking, we're seeing the Canadian housing market, of which it doesn't really exist because there's no one real estate market in Canada. It's just too big and diverse of a country. But the real estate market at large across the country, like Toronto, Vancouver, and other markets, are softening. And of course, that's what we hear about on the news is Toronto, Vancouver. Prices are dropping, all this kind of stuff. Calgary is softening as well, though. In fact, Calgary is an outlier in Alberta. So most of Alberta is an extremely tight seller's market. Calgary is starting to turn a corner, and they're seeing an increase, dramatic increase year over year in months supply, like more than 100% increase in months supply. Really, really interesting fragmented or asymmetric market if you look at Alberta as a province. Lethbridge is just, different world than Calgary right now. So what's happening in Lethbridge? Well, we are seeing the benefit of population growth, right? Lethbridge continues to grow year over year. I think the last year over year number was more than 4% population growth. We're squarely over $100,000. I've been looking at contracts too much, y'all. We're squarely over 100,000 people in the city proper. And of course, much bigger trading area than that. But, Lethbridge is growing very, very steadily. And the Alberta population is growing steadily. We benefit from, net migration, so province to province. And Alberta is one of the few provinces that is getting more people coming in than going out, and then also with immigration as well, though the federal government is slowing immigration a bit, and so that will take some pressure off of housing demand. We are behind in this country by almost half in terms of housing supply targets over the next 10 years. So we'll see how that plays out, but we all know supply and demand directly impacts price. Less supply and more demand means increase in price. Let's talk about that. So in Lethbridge, I just want to talk about how segmented this market is. And this is where I think people are a little bit caught off guard. You can't look at the whole market in Lethbridge as one market other than it gives you a sense of what's happening here. You really have to break it down by price range, sometimes by neighborhood, but for the purposes of today's video, price range. So overall in Lethbridge, we have 319 listings. And if you do a 3-month rolling average on sales, we have 1.6 months supply of inventory. That's really, really tight because I would consider 3.5 to 4 months to be a balanced market. So less than 2 months supply. I mean, we just haven't seen numbers like this since the early aughts. I think that's what they say now, early aughts. I say early 2000s, but maybe I'm dating myself. It's just really tight market. Now, let's break that down. If you look at the market between 300,000 and 400,000, that's where it is absolutely wild. We only have a month worth of inventory, a month. So like 55 listings today, 55 listings total between 300 and 400,000, and that's about how many are selling in 30 days. So if you are shopping in that price point, you really need to be prepared. And if you're listing in that price point, you need to be prepared because it's wild either way. And I'll talk a little bit more about strategy at the end of this video. Going up to 650,000 and up, then the numbers really start to change and we don't see such a tight market. It's actually a buyer's market in the 650 and up, because when I pulled those numbers today, there was just over 5 months of inventory. So it's a little softer, shifting more in favor of the buyer. Okay, $1 million and up, if you take 90 days solds, like over 8 months inventory, you guys, that's pretty soft. I think the last stat I pulled, 10 properties per year in the city proper sold over $1 million or $1 million and up. Might see more than that this year, a little bit more. There's some good churn happening in that price range right now, but it's just, that is a much tougher market. So if you're a buyer, you have choices. You have choices when you get into those higher price points, okay? Strategy. So what do? If you're a buyer looking in a very competitive price range, you know, that sort of mid-market, like 300 to 600 is the bell curve in Lethbridge. If you're shopping up to even 500, it could be a competitive situation. There's not as much inventory to choose from. Properties are selling quickly. So hire a realtor who's seasoned, experienced, understands the market like right down to street level, and knows what you're looking for and can be scouting for properties like on the daily, maybe on the hour, you know, depending on your timelines, because things are happening so fast and you want to know about properties as soon as they come on the market, maybe before they come on the market. Make sure you have an underwritten pre-approval, y'all. I know I've talked about this like ad nauseum over the years, but especially now that I've been a mortgage broker in the past, there's no excuse not to have a fully underwritten pre-approval, like none. And here's the thing, people are running around writing offers with a realtor and they say they're pre-approved, but they're not, because a back of napkin pre-approval or running some numbers on a mortgage calculator or walking into the bank and them asking you, well, how much do you make a year and what do you owe on your credit card? That's not a pre-approval. You are only pre-approved, only pre-approved if you signed a credit consent so that the mortgage professional can pull fresh credit bureau, and they asked you for income documents, proof of income, and down payment documents, proof of down payment. Like that's the bare minimum for a real pre-approval. And then you still have to get the property approved after you write an offer on something. The bank might not like the property, or it might not appraise, or whatever. So there's no reason, and yet we see deals collapsing left, right, and center in Lethbridge over financing. Like I probably talk about this like, I don't know, every other day and every other video. Call me if you have questions about that. That's all I gotta say. Here's the other thing. If you're shopping for a home in a competitive price range, again, like all the way up to about 500, 550, it could be competitive. There's certainly far less selection than we had even 5 years ago. Be realistic about what you're shopping for. Be realistic about what you can buy with your budget. So if you're shopping for a 350, you might not get the home for 350 and you're not getting it for 325 if the home shows well and the value is there. Do you know what I mean? So you have to be really realistic about what you're shopping for, and you might have to reconsider your criteria. So I'm seeing a lot of home buyers, and maybe they're realtors, a lot of home buyers say, well, I'm pre-approved up to 300,000, or I'm pre-approved up to 250. And like 5 or 10 years ago, I could find you something, even a detached home or a really nice half duplex It's not like that now. And it depends how much work you want to do on the property in terms of updates and renovations. So you might have to think, okay, I thought I wanted to buy a single family detached home. That was my plan while I was saving up for the last 5 years for a down payment. Now maybe I need to consider looking at multifamily, a half duplex, a condominium. And that's okay. Just get into the market, especially if you're a first-time buyer. Remember, what costs $300,000 or $400,000 today could cost another $50,000 tomorrow. So don't wait for interest rates to go down. They're already reasonable. A lot of economists are saying interest rates are not going to go down for the next 2 policy announcements by the Bank of Canada. There's 1 or 2 outliers that think there could be argument for more cuts. But if you're waiting for that, by the time you wait for interest rates to go down someday or whenever, the type of home you want could cost way more. So did you really save any money? So be ready, be realistic. My rule is if the house is a 7 out of 10, you should probably consider it. A 7 out of 10 based on your preferences and criteria. You should consider it. Get into the market. On the selling side, you have to have a plan. Even if you're selling in a very competitive hot price point or hot segment of the market, you need a plan. And if you're selling a luxury property, you also need a plan. So you don't just throw a dart at the dartboard and say, okay, let's try that price. No, you have to be strategic. You need to look at the comparables, look at very recent comparables because the market has changed so much in the last 6 months even. And if you're putting a home on the market, you need to understand that pricing is a process. It's a process. So if you're in a hot, competitive market and you're putting a home out there, just understand, what is my strategy if I get multiple offers? Do I want multiple offers? Multiple offers will drive up the price generally. But how does that look? How does the negotiation look? Does your realtor understand how to strategically handle multiple offers and dozens potentially inquiries from various realtors? There's a right and a wrong way to handle these things, and it can affect the outcome and the final sale price of your home, among other things like terms, conditions, possession date, when do I get paid for the home, what kind of conditions am I willing to accept? And if you're selling in a far softer price point or a luxury home, you need to think about how you're going to go into the market, how sharp you want to be, and how long you're willing to wait for the right buyer. The longer you're on the market, the more potential negative impact on the perceived value of the home. Staging, presentation, a pricing plan. What if I don't get any offers in the first 2 weeks? What if I don't get any showings? What if I get lots of showings? Like, you have to have a plan. Okay, I see too many people just winging it. And really, like, your realtor should be sitting down with you before you put pen to paper on anything, on a listing or on an offer, and working out a strategy and all your options, because you always have choices and you always have options. So if you have any questions at all about this very, very segmented, somewhat confusing market in Lethbridge, please give me a call or shoot me a text, 403-382-7335. Look me up at carrieflatlow.com. Like and subscribe to my channel at Facebook and YouTube, and we will see you for the next one. Take care.